Alright, we got 3 this week. 3 totally different ones.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to start with Zootopia. It's not very often I do the animated one first, but...
In this case, it makes sense.
No other option.
Yeah.
I really had no idea what this was. I just knew that a bunch of animals must have been involved. I may have very well have been thinking that it was kind of set in a zoo, kind of like the first 15 minutes of Madagascar, only at feature length. But
Nice.
But in actuality, Zootopia is actually a city where it's like, instead of humans kind of evolving and being the superior race, it is animals. And lo and behold, despite this, there are still racism and prejudice, mainly against foxes. So, and it's also a bit of a woman empowerment thing, I guess, at least a little bit, in regards to our main character, who is, forgot her first name now, her last name, Judy Hopps. That's 2 P's, by the way. Who is a small rabbit who is obsessed with this idea of being a cop. But of course she's trying to be dissuaded by her parents. There's a humorous line at the beginning where her dad says, "Hey, do you know how we ended up so happy? It's because we gave up on our dreams and we settled down." But she's not going to listen to that because she's so determined. She's our determined protagonist. So, sure enough, she goes to cop school and becomes one, and then goes to Zootopia, which is basically, what, New York? Animal New York.
Yeah. Did you just call the police academy cop school?
Yes, I did.
Nice.
So, it seems more fitting to call it that in a movie like this.
Good point.
That rabbit didn't look like she went to an academy. It looks like she went to cop school.
Okay, we'll go with that.
But because she's a rabbit, and I guess because she's a woman too, I don't know, she becomes a meter maid instead, but she is the Nicholas Angel of meter maids. So, Simon Pegg and Hot Fuzz, if that wasn't clear. And then it becomes this, she obviously meets a fox who is Jason Bateman, and then there's this whole racism allegory thing. It was kind of odd to me at first. I wasn't really expecting that. Though I started to look into it and I realized that's kind of like the main thing, like its whole, like half its reason for existence. Another thing I saw upon research is the fact that, holy shit, people love this movie.
Oh yeah.
Kind of to an insane degree. And I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's nice. Like, it's fun, and it's cute and everything, but, I mean, this is getting a huge reception.
I know.
And I'm not sure exactly where that's coming from, unless, I mean, yeah, perhaps because the relevancy of the message might have something to do with it.
Potentially.
I'm not saying that's the whole reason people would love it this much. I'm just thinking, for a movie like this, it's probably, I would say an underlying theme would have to be the reason people would take it. Then again, I'm the person that really, there's like 3 of us out there that really don't care for Frozen. So maybe I'm just out of the loop on this entirely. I don't know. This is the dude that did Wreck-It Ralph.
Yep.
Which I really, really love.
Yeah, Wreck-It Ralph is awesome.
And this isn't anywhere near that level.
No. I was actually asked that specific question about it the other day. Is it as good as Wreck-It Ralph? I'm like, no.
But then, and obviously there's the stuff in there in regards to, you could say it's about, racism or sexism or whatever, but there's stuff like, when she goes up to the dude behind the desk that's like a tiger or something, who for the longest time I thought was Jonah Hill, but it's not.
Nate Torrance.
And she says, he says that she's cute, and she says something along the lines of, I don't know, it's kind of weird when you say that, really it's only bunnies that should call other bunnies cute. I was like, did they just compare cute to...
Yep. They certainly did.
Did they really?
This movie is very message-filled.
It seems to be. And then, of course, there's the moment where we see Jason Bateman for the first time from a distance. And he, gets in somebody's way, and they say, watch where you're going, fox! And they say fox like it's this...
Yeah.
This... It's very touchy. I don't know how to word it when I say what they're clearly comparing this to. So yes, and that stuff is pretty much all throughout this. And there's also the whole, you could say she's... Are we saying racist? Racist.
That has to be what it is.
Racist towards foxes.
Yeah.
Because
she was brought up that way.
It's a deep-seated thing because she was tormented by a fox in school.
Right.
So now all foxes are bad. She's given, in particular, fox mace. Like mace specifically for foxes. And she's like, oh, I don't need that. But then she's like, maybe I should be cautious, and takes the fox mace with her. So she doesn't know whether or not to be, see them as just one whole, or just a couple of foxes out there are bad. We don't know.
We're just tiptoeing around the ice right now, honestly.
And of course, Bateman's character kind of takes us back and forth in that, like, he doesn't seem so bad, but then it turns out he kind of is, but then he's also not really. So do we still hate all foxes, or do we not? So there's that. Obviously, there's kind of a big voice cast in here. Not as big as other voice casts, but...
it's pretty big.
There's, obviously, Jennifer Goodwin is our main character, which I thought was kind of weird, because I was kind of like, isn't she kind of, past now? Isn't she, like, a little 2005?
Once Upon a Time still doing good, though.
I don't know.
And that's her claim to fame right now.
Well, and then, like I said, there's Baben in there, and then there's, Alan Tudyk is in there, basically doing an impression of Steve Buscemi.
Yep.
And then we have kind of our superior, or like chief of police or whatever, what was he, like a bull or something?
Buffalo.
Okay, yes. And that was Idris Elba. There's some other, I think Kristen Bell was one of the sloths.
She's Priscilla.
Yeah. And of course, Shakira's in there. And once again, I was thinking through the whole movie, we just had something like this too, and I can't remember what it was now, but...
Arm of the North.
It was that it?
Yes.
Yeah. Where a character is voiced by Shakira. And this character has pretty much no musical inclinations whatsoever. But, because she's voiced by Shakira, there's only one reason to cast her, and I think you know why that is. Yes, of course... This character, who was just kind of there the whole movie, not really doing a whole lot, has a big musical number for the end credits.
Her character looks more like Paris Hilton now.
I don't know.
It's just the hair, I guess.
But this is one of those movies that has a lot of, there's a lot of little jokes in there, and there's a lot of background stuff that'll probably, multiple viewings will probably help. Kind of like in that Hotel Transylvania vein. Where there's just so much going on in some scenes that you probably won't catch everything. So it's always nice to see that kind of stuff. But then there's stuff like, sometimes they get really, really, into their whole, we're showing one thing that's very kid-friendly, but we really mean another thing. There's the whole crystal meth lab thing.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to do it looks like, and they're treating it like a crystal meth lab thing. But then they kind of have to throw one more thing on the pile, and in just kind of a quick line as the dude's leaving, he's talking about having to do a deal with Walt and Jesse.
Yep.
And I mean, it's nice that they want to do the whole, in jokes and references thing. And, doing the whole, hey, this is like a crystal meth lab in a movie like this is one thing, but when you go as far as to do the Walt and Jesse thing, it's kind of more like, it kind of goes from, we're making reference to adult things in kids' movies, isn't it great? Kind of falling into more, it kind of reminded me of when Dr. Evil is trying to get Scott to love him, and he says, I'm with it, I'm hip. It kind of felt more like that. So, but they're not all that. They don't come off all that desperate. Not all of them. But then there's stuff like Mr. Big.
Yes.
And
Maurice LaMarche.
Yeah. And Mr. Big is a spoof of The Godfather. Brando and The Godfather specifically. But it's that ancient joke where Mr. Big is built up and he's tiny. That fucking jerk is... And so, yeah, there are some things in here that work and feel fresh, but then there are other things where not so much and were a little played out. Disney right now is totally obsessed with the twist villain cliche. They will put that in any fucking movie, apparently.
See what happens with Finding Dory.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, Pixar's not really so much doing that as much as the Disney.
Walt Disney Animation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were just talking about Wreck-It Ralph, and there's
Frozen.
Frozen, yeah. That was just... I think I even mentioned that in the review. Like, what was the point of that?
Yeah.
And once again, here, it kind of feels like there's no point to it, too. But you spend the whole movie waiting for it.
Yeah.
Because, to their credit, I had my eye on one person the whole time. I was like, that dude's totally the bad guy. But he wasn't, surprisingly.
I had someone else in mind, actually, than you did, weirdly enough.
Talking about the movie's core joke. The thing they really, really love pushing in the media, apparently. That I was very appreciative of, because obviously it's the sloth thing.
Yep.
But I hadn't, and obviously sloths are that thing where it's like, they're popular on social media for some reason. It's just some bullshit, some, like, twin girls started, and now it's this thing.
Right.
And everybody, it's this thing that everybody takes to, which is kind of, I think, what the movie, the people making this probably had in mind when they took this angle. But what I appreciated about this was, since I didn't see that trailer, this was all new to me. So what it was they're doing the sloth thing, and I'm like, that's, it's the DMV and sloth, that's funny.
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of doing its thing, and it's like, yeah, and I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna get old really, really fast. But the great thing about this scene is you see the setup, and you think, oh my god, they're gonna drag this out until it's really, really old. But somehow, some way, they accomplished it to where, yeah, the scene drags on and on and on and on, but it actually gets funnier the more they drag it out. Like, just in any normal movie, it would kind of reach the point of where you're like, okay, they've played this out. But the scene actually starts to slow down more and more, and it makes it funnier as the scene goes. And then the ultimate payoff where they go outside and it's nighttime now. So I really thought that was going to play itself out, but they actually did it really well to where it one-upped itself, believe it or not. If I kind of have a few problems here, mainly it's on top of the jokes that kind of feel a little okay, kind of slow down a little bit. The thing that kind of baffles me the most about the acclaim it's getting is it feels so minor. Especially given what the concept is. Like, the concept is a really big idea. It feels like they could do a lot of stuff with it. And they do find a lot of stuff to do with it. But the whole movie just felt very...
There?
Do you remember... You know how there's Madagascar?
The Wild.
And then there's The Wild?
Yeah.
Which is the... I almost feel like I need to explain that, because I don't even know if people remember The Wild. The Wild is basically Madagascar, only cheaper, and, like, nobody saw it. But it's still got a theatrical run just the same. And it's pretty much the same story. This almost feels like it's another movie's The Wild. If that makes sense. To where there's just kind of... I don't know, and especially also given this really broad concept, I didn't really find the plot all that interesting. It's kind of doing like, it's almost like it's trying to do like a classic noir thing, in a way, which is an interesting way to take it, don't get me wrong, it's just, I don't know. And this whole, having a modern and relevant message thing, is great, but it can only kind of take a movie so far.
Right.
They're very dependent on that, that whole concept. And it's not like that's a concept we haven't seen in other movies before. It's there. It's there in other movies and a lot more subtle about it. But I mean, still though, it's a good message to be putting out there to younger audiences. So of course you want to you know, more power to it for that. I just I don't know. I saw one critic's comment say the best animated movie of the year.
Ooh.
Its only other competition, I think, is Northern North.
Which is the worst movie of the year.
Has any other animated movie come out this year?
Not in this country.
Did I just forget it? I don't know.
Unless there's something that's came out in other countries.
I don't remember, but
we still have Finding Dory to come.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know what that. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to make it to the DVD cover or something.
Possibly.
But this it's weird we're talking about this already when the ceremony just ended.
Right.
But I guess we've already got a major player for animated feature.
No, I'm saying so.
Which is we do tend to get them this early sometimes, like Coraline and stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm afraid. I mean, I'm trying not to. I don't typically let this, have any say. But there's always a fear in the back of my head. I can't help but I know you're going to point fingers at Inside Out, but the way I've been treating it lately. But I'm afraid this is going to be one of those movies where it's like, I like it now, and I think it's really cute and harmless and has a nice message and everything, and the characters are likable and all that. But the acclaim this movie is getting is really kind of out of control for a movie so kind of minor. And I'm just kind of afraid it's going to taint it the more it's built up to be this incredibly magnificent, Frozen-esque thing. I don't know. I really don't see it that way. I just think it's a nice movie that's here now and is going to be gone later. In my mind, anyway.
Huh.
I know next season it'll probably be back, but...
I mean, you get J.K. Simmons as a mayor, so there you go.
He's been doing so much voice work.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Kung Fu Panda was this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So basically that critic was saying Zootopia is better than Kung Fu Panda 3.
I buy that.
Okay.
I'm happy Don Lake's in the movie, too, even though most people don't know who he is.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, to me it's just fine. But then again, we had this conversation a lot. I'm just having a real disconnect with animated movies lately.
I've noticed.
Just for the past few years now. I've been talking about this for a long time, I feel like.
Trust me, I see
I think the last movie, not counting stuff like Boy in the World and Anomalisa, strictly speaking, like, in this particular area of animated movies, I think the only one I've really, really liked in the past few years is Shaun the Sheep. I don't know. So, yeah. That's where I stand with that. Okay. Our second movie is just like Zootopia. Actually, it's not. It's London Has Fallen. London Has Fallen is the sequel to Olympus Has Fallen. Remember Olympus Has Fallen? I wrote a review for that. Yeah. I didn't say anything. But I wrote that one, and you read it back in that awkward phase that went on for about a month when I did reviews. But when I was too afraid of the camera. Which I still am, as you can probably tell. So, should you not remember the events of Olympus Has Fallen? That's not really important, apparently.
Nope.
We're just moving on with life. Forgetting that ever happened. I don't even know that they referenced the events of the first movie.
No.
Despite how major they were. So the movie begins, and everything is just stupidly happy. I almost fucking hated these people for how goddamn happy they were. You have the light score. Well, you have the terrorist prologue during the opening credits, and then we cut, and we have to have that contrast of bad terrorists to Gerard Butler and Aaron Eckhart. Aaron Eckhart is obviously our president, and Gerard Butler's like his Secret Service guy / best friend. It's like he has no other Secret Service guys except for Gerard Butler. That's how close they are. And they're out running, and they're poking fun at each other, and then Morgan Freeman went from, the Secretary of the State in the first one. Now he's the Vice President, which I think they mentioned at the end of the first movie. And then Butler and his wife, Rhoda Mitchell, are now with child. Everything's great. He's going to resign. and everything's gonna be super duper happy, and it's like, oh, you're being too protective of the nursery. You got cameras in here. You're gonna bulletproof the windows. Hilarity. So, but then of course, the Prime Minister is killed, and we assemble all our leaders, and then a terrorist attack from a dude who, the prologue shows us that we went after a dude, and there was a drone attack, and he survived, but his family bit it, like his sister and his daughter and all that.
He had to watch his daughter die in his arms.
Yeah, so they said daughter first, and then he said sister.
Really?
So I don't know. But
I don't recall that.
because they talked about he lived but his daughter died, but then later when he's talking to Aaron Eckhart, he says, I had to watch my sister die in my arms. And it's like, okay, I don't know if that's the writers forgetting or if just they all died and they were just spreading out who they mentioned. I don't know, but
perhaps.
So anyway, the entire first half hour of this movie, you'll remember the first movie if you do. It's really, it's kind of hardcore. It was, people brushed it off as Die Hard at the White House, because that's exactly what it was. All the way down to every single character trait for everybody.
Yep.
And yeah, it was kind of, I don't know, you can't really say it was overshadowed by White House Down, because neither movie was really that popular.
Right.
So,
but this one got a sequel and that one didn't.
Yeah. The Roland Emmerich movie starring Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx did not get a sequel. But the Gerard Butler movie did.
This doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. Somebody said Gerard Butler has that Ryan Reynolds look. Like, you can just make flop after flop after flop, but they'll just keep giving you shit.
Oh, yeah.
We have Gerard Butler 2 weeks in a row.
True.
In big budget action movies. And it is 2016.
Exactly.
Gerard Butler should have died in 2007. But no, he's here. His career, not actually him. Come on.
You need to specify.
Dude, he seems like such a nice guy.
He does. He seems awesome.
I'd never say that.
I like Gerard Butler. He's awesome.
So anyway, and it's this big, violent, action-packed movie. I really didn't mind it. There's a lot of stupidity, and it's the patriotic thing. But it was still kind of a cool movie anyway. It's better. Olympus Has Fallen is better than White House Down. White House Down is probably more fun, but Olympus Has Fallen is a lot darker.
As a movie, it's better.
Yeah. So, and then this one obviously kind of, we stay in that, dark and violent attitude. But the first half hour of this movie, at least, is just people being labeled. I remember that happening a lot in the first movie, but not to this extent. Because there is, just every single person or every single place is getting labeled. But not only that, we're getting times as well. Now, a lot of movies do this, to its credit. We don't want to just say we were singling it out, and stop doing that because you're stupid. But, a lot of movies do this, but I mean, this is ridiculous. And a lot of the times, the time has no indication on anything whatsoever. Because it's kind of like, maybe we're kind of have a countdown to something, or we're going to get to something at a certain point in time. But then a scene will play out of just a dude walking in a room, and it'll say 8:30 a.m. And then he'll say, all right, people, okay. And then we'll cut to another scene at an airport, and it's 2:30 p.m. What the fuck did it matter that that other scene was at 8 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
Not at all. Nothing whatsoever. And over half the people that are labeled, number one, you don't really need to remember. You probably won't remember. Or it's somebody we know from the first movie.
Exactly.
Angela Bassett and Morgan Freeman and all of them get labeled. I was trying to remember Jackie Earle Haley and Robert Forster and all of them were in the... I know Melissa Leo was in the first one, but I couldn't remember if Haley and Forster were. Because I saw them in the credits and I was like, awesome! But then I was like, oh, they're probably just sitting in a room talking to Morgan Freeman. And sure enough, that's exactly what they did the whole time.
Jackie Earle Haley was not in the first one.
Okay. Was Forster? Yes, he was. Yes. I see him right there.
Dylan McDermott was in there instead.
Yeah, he was the corrupt one.
Yep.
So, because it's Dylan McDermott, he's always going to be corrupt. Of course. But, okay, now I say this, but there is one particular moment where we get, 7 captions within the span of, 30 seconds. It's the first time we go to London, because we see London, and it says London, and then we see the fucking street they're on, and it labels the street. And then we go into the room, it labels the room. And then we label 4 other people in that room. And this all... and it's... Every single person they cut to, I was starting to expect would get one of those. Even the extras. Like, if we just cut to some dude just kind of in the background doing whatever, he would just get a label. It's like, some fuck. And then it's just 8:45 p.m.
That's
and then, it didn't matter. None of it matters. Okay, so... They're distracting the shit out of you with stuff that has no bearing on anything whatsoever.
Right.
Clearly that gets old.
Oh, yeah.
They feel like... I think they feel like they're building to something. Because it gets so action-packed once the action breaks out.
Oh, yeah.
But, no. This is all useless. This is just a waste of time. And yes, I went into this movie very, very worried. Because the first one, while... I think it's decent. Wasn't, you know... it wasn't... I've only seen it that one time. That's the only real desire I had to see it was that first time. And I was like, yeah. And then 3 years later, I have not bothered. So, I got even more worried because I heard 2 things. Number one, Antoine Fuqua did Olympus Has Fallen.
Correct.
He did not come back for this one because he didn't like the script.
Right.
But instead of changing the shitty script, they just said, okay, we'll hire another director. Don't trust the guy that directed Training Day. You do your own thing. So, then we move on, and Morgan Freeman is out doing the press. And what does Morgan Freeman say? I did it for the money.
Oh, wow.
I did it because this is the quote. I did it because it pays well.
That's not good.
So, I went into this movie with a little fear in my heart.
I'd say so.
Okay. So, now, as far as this goes, I don't know. The characters who are here are pretty much as useless as they were last time. Rhoda Mitchell's still playing the worried wife that we only get occasional glimpses of, who is now confined to home, which makes her even more useless.
Well, as much as Ashley Judd, she's not even in the movie.
She died in the opening of the first one, remember?
Yeah. Even, no, I mean like
then,
a flashback. Because usually, like, there'd be at least one flashback.
And then there's Angela Bassett, who was... I kind of made a little joke in my head to, like, when they... I didn't realize they were labeling every damn person yet, but when they labeled her again, when we already knew who she was from the first one, I was just thinking, wow, even the makers of this movie know how useless she was in the first one. Is that nobody remembers what her purpose was. Thank you for the reminder. And I remember thinking Melissa Leo was, like, kind of annoying in the first one. She's the one that gets dragged around while she screams the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
And they, like, beat the shit out of her, despite, you know, her whole Oscar-winning status. Well, thankfully, she's not really annoying in this one, because she has, like, 2 lines. Robert Forster, and Jackie Earle Haley, and Sean O'Brien is there, too. And they kind of, like, trade off speaking to Morgan Freeman. That's basically what their job is. So we got Oscar nominee Jackie Earle Haley, Oscar nominee Robert Forster, Oscar winner Melissa Leo, in the room with Oscar winner Morgan Freeman, and they're just exchanging lines every now and then until we can cut back to Gerard Butler shooting people. And let's talk about Gerard Butler's character in here, because this guy, this guy is interesting. He's certainly an interesting character to watch. We'll give them credit for that. But maybe not in the best way. Because I want you to take some things into account. There are 3 different ways that we see this guy. There's, as I was talking about before, stupidly happy. The dude that, you know, pals around with the president and pokes fun and goes home to his wife and they have, oh, I'm gonna be the overprotective dad thing and everybody's happy and, you know, we have such a perfect life and I'm gonna resign and all that. And he's like, this is a dude you can hang out with. This is a dude that, you know, you'd probably, you know, see at some bar and he'd, like, buy you a drink just to be friendly or something. And then there's the second aspect of this character, and that is our standard action hero one-liner guy. Where he's, he can, shoot people, and he can, spin around, and he can do the stunts, and he has some interesting lines, like, what was it? He was talking to one of the terrorists on a walkie-talkie, and he says, why don't you go back to Fuckheadistan, or wherever you're from, or something like that. There's an odd line where just before one of the big shootouts in the street, he locks and loads and then says, alright, it's about to get sporty. And then he just does this thing. So we have action hero guy. But then there is a third aspect to this character. The psychopath. We've got soon-to-be dad, happy husband, Secret Service guy. We've got one-liner quoting action hero guy. And then we have this guy, whose job it is to protect the president. So he's gonna shoot, he's gonna shoot people like he's been doing, but that's action hero guy. But I'm not talking about action hero guy anymore. There is a scene where he has a dude who is one of the villains' brothers. He's got the brother on the ground, and he's talking to the terrorist on the wall. I think this is Fuckheadistan. I think that's where that line came in. And he's got his brother underneath him, and he's saying, like, yeah, I got your brother, yeah. And so he says, well, before this little, verbal transaction is over, I want you to hear something. And he turns the walkie-talkie on so the brother can hear, and he sticks a knife in the guy as slow as he possibly can, while the dude has to listen to his brother's screaming death. This guy is unarmed by this point. And then the dude dies slowly while his brother listens to him screaming. And then once that's over, they're walking away. And Aaron Eckhart says, was that really necessary? And he just walks it off and says, nope. And goes on. And then goes right back into action hero guy.
It's Mel Gibson.
And I was like, what in the fuck was that?
It's Mel Gibson from Lethal Weapon.
That guy's about to be a father!
Yes!
What the fuck? That's terrifying. That's like that scene in Saving Private Ryan, for God's sake.
Right.
That just... I'm on Aaron Eckhart's side here. Was it? Okay, if you want to be a hard ass, can't you just, say, what was that? That was the sound of me stabbing your brother in the head and killing him instantly. That's just as, hard ass without being torturous to the guy.
He just felt he had to pay.
He was really basking in that. That was creepy. And yeah, that guy, the happy ending of this movie is that guy gets to be a father. I mean, I know those are some bad terrorist guys, but... God. And then the movie does have those points where it's kind of... You want to embrace it as this big action movie, and there's a lot of dumb shit in there. Like, the whole left-handed thing... That kind of stupid shit. But then there's stuff where it tries to get really, really dead serious. And there's this moment where we're kind of building up to Aaron Eckhart is going to be executed publicly. Very much in the style of what they tried with Kick-Ass and Big Daddy.
It's in the trailer too.
And they're doing they pull out a machete, so it's like going to be an ISIS video basically. But anyway, far away from that. There's this scene where he and Gerard Butler are just running around doing their thing. There's explosions, and there's shootings, and there's wicked stabbing. And then they just get down, and then there's a nice kind of, a breath of fresh air moment. And then Aaron Eckhart just says, dude, if it comes to this, kill me.
Don't tell a guy like that to kill you.
First off, I get, we're heading towards a potential public execution. But this still just seemed kind of out of place. When it was just...
It's like a suicide pill.
Oh man, that was close. Hey dude, by the way, if it should come to it, kill me.
He doesn't want to die to become propaganda.
Yeah, but still, I mean, for God's sake. And then there's stuff that's, sometimes there's stuff where I'm not even sure. Because there's one scene where I laughed for about 5 minutes, and I don't think we're supposed to. I think it was supposed to catch us off guard, and then kind of take us from a place and put us in another. But what's happening here is it's this big action scene where Aaron Eckhart's driving, and they're going down the street, and there's a hail of gunfire, and they have to kind of just drive through it and hope everything turns out okay. And then they're just taking people out and running people over and shooting them and scraping them against walls and tunnels and shit. And then everybody gets wiped out, and everything's great. And then they're just kind of driving, and then they realize the absurdity of what they just did. With no other option, they just drove through a hail of gunfire, and they're alive. So they're like, holy shit, we just did something totally stupid, but we're alive. And they start laughing like doofuses.
Oh, yeah.
And in the middle of this doofy laughter, where they're all buddy-buddy again, they suddenly get smashed into by this giant truck and flipped over. And I think it's supposed to jar us out of the laughter, but I couldn't help it. I just found that...
Yeah, it just literally comes out of nowhere.
I just found that hilarious. Because they were so happy about being alive. And then they just get smashed into from out of nowhere. Sorry, it was just really
Spence, you sound like a horrible person to people that just turned the video on.
I know. I was so upset about the stabbing, too. No, them getting smashed into by a truck is hilarious. I think it's because of the way they were laughing about it. But anyway, oh shit. Okay. Okay. So, continuing on, I had a kind of a big problem with the effects. Like this.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Shit.
Oh, God. Let's try to get back on course here.
I know. It's really not that funny.
No, certain things just get you at the right time. It's just how it works.
The effects were an issue.
Mm.
Because I remember this being an issue in the first movie. Where when the Washington Monument fell.
Mm.
And everything looked really, really animated. And there's a lot of really big scenes in this.
Right.
Just don't smile, it's making it worse.
I'm trying not to. You're crying at this point. It's even better.
When this big devastating attack happens,
right?
And they take a bridge down. It's this really big thing, and they're taking the buildings down. There's the poster image where like Big Ben's blowing out from one side and going out the other.
It's Final Destination.
But this whole thing, not even that, but even when they're in helicopters flying through the air, when we get overhead shots of like the water being disrupted from the bridge falling.
Yes.
It's everything looks so fake.
Oh, I know.
Everything looks so animated. And I was like, this movie can be really awesome. But they are not wasting any of their budget to actually blow something up. This whole fucking thing is so fake. And all the... Just even at the very beginning when, like, the explosions are happening and the fire and stuff like that, it's like, you literally cannot blow anything up. All of this fire is so animated and fake looking. There is nothing to do here. Like when they get shot out of the sky and crash, and a somewhat not really kind of major character bites it. But everything is just so fake looking. It really doesn't matter.
Right.
So, I don't know. There is one cool thing where there's like, when that explosion happens during the big attack, and it's like kind of like a ripple explosion, and it like takes out the windows of that building.
That was cool.
It still looked fake, but at least it was cool looking.
Yeah.
It was like the most real looking an explosion gets in this movie. Maybe that's why it looked so good. But, so, yeah, I'm obviously not as big on this one as I was the other one, and I'm not even, huge on the other one. I just thought it was pretty decent and kind of fun. But, Yeah. I'm kind of like when we come around to the star amount, it'll be interesting because I'm really not quite sure where we're gonna go.
I think I know where you're leaning right now.
But then there's also another thing. I think this was right before Kill Me, but it was there's one moment where obviously we get those. There is a lot of times in this movie where a big action scene breaks out, and then Gerard Butler and Aaron Eckhart just take the time to go, we're buddies. But there's one particular. It reminds me of the scene in the sewers in I Spy.
Yeah.
When they like just get high. They start talking about happy shit. Or whatever. Because I guess they're glad to be alive, and he's going to be a dad, and stuff like that. But, it gets to a point where that little happy, that optimistic score is playing. Where it's, like, kind of happy and in the moment like that. But when they're going through their dialogue, this little happy, optimistic score playing is, like, at the same volume as the dialogue. I thought that was a bit overkill, if you want to put it that way. But, so, I mean, yeah, it really depends on the way you look at this movie, depending on how you're going to enjoy it, if you are. If you're a critic, you're probably not, but... but, I mean, if this is your kind of thing, I'm sure you'll be fine, because there is... once it gets going, and once we're done labeling people for half an hour, the action's pretty much nonstop. To its credit. And not really, I mean, you would think typically in a movie like this, you would think after a while it would get boring, but they keep the movie alive long enough, but, at the same time, though, it's pretty easy to see why Antoine Fuqua would look at this script and say, no, not me.
This guy is a Swedish director that's never had an American film. This is his first one. Oh, my question to you, after watching the movie, I'm going to give you that who would win fight question. So, who's more of a badass? Mike Banning or Brian Mills? Because I'm telling you right now, Gerard Butler really was bringing the action.
Yeah, but
I mean, Liam Neeson has craziness and killing people too. So
Brian Mills though doesn't take his time.
That's true.
Like while fucking Banning's sitting there driving a knife into a dude's throat, they're going, "Yeah, listen to your brother die." Mills could just give him a headshot.
Yeah.
That scene at the end when the creepy dude at the end of the first Taken has like his daughter in front of him, and he's like, "Yeah, what are you gonna do now?" Fucking dude just shot him.
Yeah. Okay, I see where you're coming from there.
Yeah, I'd say Brian Mills probably got this. So Brian Mills, I'm basically saying, could kill the president if he wanted to. You take out Banning, Eckhart's got nobody else. He does not give a fuck about anybody else in the Secret Service except for Banning. So
seriously, he doesn't.
So yes, okay. And we're gonna go ahead and end this on Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, which in a way I wasn't looking forward to because the subject matter isn't all that interesting. But then again, Tina Fey. So I was going to be there regardless. Hopeful. And just happy to be there, with her at least. So just like how she made it hard for me to hate Sisters. That's quite an accomplishment. She couldn't do the same for Admission. But if you can keep me from absolutely positively hating Sisters, that's particularly clear. But I was a little concerned, and this kept something up kind of the whole movie, and it was something that became a concern to me immediately. So that was alarming. I'm of course talking about the fact that the movie begins, and we hear Jump Around playing. And then we're at this party, and then a bomb goes off, and then, it's Tina Fey, and it's, Nicholas Braun's there, and a few other recognizable faces, and everybody's partying, they're getting drunk, and they're getting high, and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, it's that kind of movie. But then a bomb goes off, and the very next scene is like something out of United 93. And I was like, okay, 30 seconds in, I have a really bad feeling this movie has no idea what the fuck it is. I just have a hunch in this first 30 seconds that this movie is going to be all over the goddamn place. And sure enough, we go back in time. This is one of those things we come back to. We go back, 2 or 3 years? And she is a reporter that's being sent to Afghanistan to basically, show us what the fuck's going on. And it's very... I don't know. Okay, another thing in regards to this whole weird tone thing is we have this... I don't know what it is about her or what she thinks of herself or what. But I think we can all agree that Tina Fey is like, I don't want to get too much into this, but Tina Fey is very, very nice to look at. And the thing about it is, you'll notice in a lot of her movies, she likes to play it up that the people around her, the characters, don't think so. Like that was a very long running joke in 30 Rock too. Was that Liz Lemon for some reason is not that attractive, and they keep that up with this. Of course, this movie is like almost the best she's ever looked, I think. But the whole start of it is we're in a place for this whole gathering is of women who are unmarried and don't have families and stuff like that, and it kind of keeps it as like they're outcast of society or something. And she's got a boyfriend who is Josh Charles, but they play it off like she's just kind of like nobody would go near it or something. And another reason you can kind of tell they're playing that angle is when they say that's the specific requirement for the people in this room, there's a woman that just starts crying. And you can tell it's supposed to be a funny scene. But the weird thing about it, I'm not quite sure how to explain this. But it kind of goes into that whole 1993 feel. But you could tell scenes are happening that are supposed to be funny, given setups like the woman crying or just the things she's saying. These scenes are meant to be funny. But the movie at this particular time has a serious look. You know what I mean? Mm. Like, if the movie were muted, just the way it looks, you would think you were watching a straight drama. If that makes sense. I'm not really quite sure how to explain it, but if you were to see, I think you know what I mean. It's weird. It's really weird, actually. But regardless, then she goes there, and another thing that just raised a red flag immediately that had me quaking with fear was that I was getting Rock the Casbah vibes. Ugh. I was really starting to kind of feel that Bill Murray movie that I'm probably informing you of now that's already come and gone that I reviewed last year. Which clearly I was not a fan of, and I don't think many other people were either. I was getting that. They even played the same Kid Rock song that movie did. Yeah? But at least here it was tone setting. I don't know what the fuck it was doing in Rock the Casbah, but anyway. So, yes, it really requires, her likability takes this movie a long way. Like, if it wasn't Tina Fey and it wasn't Tina Fey doing her thing, this movie would be a lot worse than it is. But secondly, if you want to take on the criticism, that's also, you really, really have to be a Tina Fey fan for this. Because, she is doing that same thing. She plays the same character a lot. And this is no different. So if you're a fan of that, then you should be okay. But if you're not, there's really nothing I can recommend here. But lucky for me, I am one of those people, at least for now still. And obviously Margot Robbie's in here. And yes, Be Still My Beating Heart. Tina Fey and Margot Robbie are in the same movie. Sometimes in the same scene together. So, and she's basically this side character who is kind of, she's a reporter, but then she kind of somewhat becomes a rival, but also her friend, and there's kind of a back and forth with that. And we have Billy Bob Thornton in here, who is hilarious. Oh, yeah. He's not here very much, and I was kind of afraid he was just going to be wasted. But he's got some really good lines in this. And just he's got those Billy Bob deliveries that we all just love. And also in side roles, we've got Alfred Molina, who has a decent part. He can be funny, but his character is also kind of weird. And we have Christopher Abbott is in here, and kind of a really nice subplot where she befriends this guy who's about to get married. And their friendship is kind of a really nice kind of heart to the movie throughout the whole thing. Their relationship was a lot more interesting than hers and Martin Freeman's, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And that was just platonic. Martin Freeman's obviously that character where he's there and he's very, boisterous. He's got like the Scottish accent and all that, and he's kind of the scruffy looking. It was kind of weird seeing him because I kind of had to double take to make sure it was him because I was like, this is not the Martin Freeman I know. And eventually he may or may not become, a love interest of sorts, despite Josh Charles, but that's its whole other thing, which I think is blown in the trailers. Even though it comes in actually kind of late, but if I remember correctly, I think I overheard that the trailers maybe go into that, but no surprises regardless. I don't know. It's very... Yeah, that's... If you can get past the weird tone... The weird tone does kind of start to balance itself out a little bit. But there are still some things in there. Like, we have this kind of humor in there. There's, like, dick jokes and stuff like that. But there's... when I say dick jokes, I almost kind of mean literally in the sense that, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I never really found it that funny, but I get that it's maybe supposed to be the character's thing. I don't know what, but, she kind of has this thing throughout the movie where her favorite curse word seems to be dick. And she puts it in really weird places in sentences. Like in places you would not normally think of the word dick when it's the word you're looking for.
Like Lewis Flag. He does the same thing with the F word.
Whatever.
I know you don't like him, but it's the same situation.
I don't. And then there's stuff like the climax. Obviously we've kind of had a somewhat comedy, and then kind of a war thing going on here, and we kind of go back and forth a little bit. There's like scenes where people blow up and their limbs are missing and their bones are sticking out, and it's like, we're watching a comedy, right? I mean, I know it's, being within the war and everything, but I mean, still, kind of organized. I mean, 1 minute it's like, oh, I need to find a place to piss, and I'm a woman, and that's funny, and then the next minute you have dudes dragging their severed limbs around, in this very serious moment. I don't know. But then we get this climax where it's basically, we're kind of, in a comedic place here. There's a little bit of romance. There's a friendship and all that. And then our climax is a Zero Dark 30 style raid set to Harry Nilsson's Without You. Yeah. That was weird.
Yeah, just a bit.
I mean, I get, the dramatic factor of the scene, but there was really no build-up to it. There wasn't a whole lot of suspense to it, because I was distracted by the song choice. There's no, like Edgerton leading the team into Bin Laden's place, but that just really kind of dark score playing underneath. That was something in itself, but... this song choice with this scene was not feeling the same feel.
Very strange.
And then sometimes there's stuff to where they kind of... It's kind of like something interesting is going to happen, but then they just don't care. Like the moment where... I was kind of sitting there and I was kind of like, okay, what exactly direction is this movie going? And what's its point going to be, I wonder? And then we get to this moment where she's getting ready to go home to Josh Charles, and then they stop her dramatically, and they say, there's this dude we want you to go meet, and it's like a warlord, and she's like, oh my god, the warlord? And they're like, yeah, it's this guy who hasn't been interviewed since the war. And they make it this big deal that she's gonna interview this big warlord, and it's the first time he's been interviewed since the war. They go to... This scene happens immediately after. And you're like, I feel like there's going to be some tension here. Maybe a little bit of humor, but also some tension. Kind of like a serious version of one of the scenes in Bruno when he was interviewing terrorists. Maybe something like that.
Pretty much.
Well, there's a couple of jokes thrown around And then before this big interview with this warlord who hasn't been interviewed since the war happens, the scene ends and we never talk about that again. That scene existed, number one, just to keep her from going home, and number two, a couple of jokes about translation. That felt like a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, maybe just to me, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Maybe you'll find it distracting that this movie is full of so many beautiful people. Because not only do I just keep bringing that up, but secondly, because, and not only does Tina Fey just happen to constantly look amazing no matter what circumstance she's in, despite the fact that this is supposed to be just bringing her down, her physical being and everything. She's supposed to not have showered for days or whatever. But then this also kind of went in full force where it was like, number one, they kind of teased something that would have been a big, I mean, I know this is a true story supposedly, or based on, I don't know how, you can never tell how accurate one thing is to another, but, obviously Margot Robbie looks like Margot Robbie, and we all love that. But there is a scene, where I was absolutely convinced that she was dead. Because she's in her car, and they're going to this meeting, and then the car in front of her explodes, and then it kind of comes back, and there's like a big explosion, and it's like, holy shit, they just killed Margot Robbie. So clearly this character has been not only kind of smashed, and then an explosion, a big-ass explosion. And now I was like, wow, they fucking killed her. And then the next time we see Margot Robbie, she's in the hospital, alive, and she looks exactly like Margot Robbie, just with a cast. Barely anything happening at all. Just a cast. And some tubes coming out of her nose. But she's alive and well. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I just saw her blow the fuck up.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Margot Robbie. Your looks are literally indestructible. So, but yeah, it gets, it's fine, you know, as it goes along. Like I said, the tone kind of balances itself out a little bit, and you can kind of get used to it. And they do tend to find kind of a middle ground for most of the middle, but like I said, at the beginning it's very jarring, and then at the end, some of it gets weird. But for the most part, there's enough keeping it alive. Like I said, the Christopher Abbott storyline, I think, is a really strong aspect of it, and Martin Freeman's really good in this, too. I really like that character. And like I said, if you're a fan of hers, then you'll be just fine. Because she's doing her thing, and she's doing her thing until it gets old. And for now, that's still strong enough to keep a movie going, so yeah. I think that's about it.
Alright, so ends another edition of AJ's Movie Reviews, but before we go, star amounts. Zootopia.
2.5.
London Has Fallen.
2 seems too generous, but 1.5 seems a bit too harsh. 1.5 probably won't seem too harsh in retrospect, but I'll go ahead and give it 2 now, just for being able to sustain the action for that last hour was a bit impressive.
And Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
2.5.
Alright. Kind of a blah week here on the Podcast Network for AJ's Movie Reviews. Versus this Sunday, your cryptic comment is game over, man, game over. And yeah, we'll do that. Of course, AJ will bring more movie reviews next week.
If you haven't figured out what that is, you're probably not a fan of movies.
Most likely. Next week is 10 Cloverfield Lane, The Brothers Grimsby, and Young Messiah.
Yeah.
Yet another faith-based movie in another month. We have 3 this month. Technically. Oh, it's horrible.
Alright.
Alright, so that being said, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. AJ, any parting words?
That's it.